And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And it's great to have a brand new guest. And it came from me seeing the wonderful Make Europe Healthy Again event that was over on the continent just a few weeks ago. And I reached out to the team and they said, you need to talk to Dr. Andrea Lamont Nazarenko. And I have Andrea with us today. Andrea, thanks so much for giving us your time.
Oh, it's my honor to be here. Thank you so much for giving us a platform to talk about our movement to make Europe healthy again.
It's needed and it's exciting. So I am all ears for hearing more about it. And I've talked to a number of the people who were there. Obviously, Robert Malone was there, and he's been on as a guest like a dozen times. And Rob Bruce has been a guest numerous times, and many others. So it was a great team you brought together. So I want to delve into all of that, but maybe stepping back a little bit, and there is your handle, Dr. Andrew PhD, on X, where people can follow you. And you're a psychologist, also
Mhm.
an author. When Food Hurts, which you did in
Mhm.
2019, 4 steps to a gut happy lifestyle. And that's a question that many people are asking in terms of food sensitivities. And so that
Mhm.
is there. The link is there in the description. You're co-founder of Inspired Network, launched in 2023 to optimize, I think, really the operations of the health and freedom movement, as complicated and as
Mhm.
wide as that is, and many other projects. But maybe I can ask you to introduce yourself to our audience before we jump into MAHA, MEHA, and what exactly is happening.
Absolutely. So, my background is in clinical community psychology with an emphasis on quantitative psychology, which is a lot of syllables to describe oneself. Basically, what it means is that I study human behavior. But like most psychologists, when you think about psychologists, you think about sit on my couch and let's talk about your childhood. And part of my career started with that. I started with serious and violent youth offenders and wanting to help them. And what I quickly learned in that in that work was that we didn't have a couple of bad apples, but our barrel has gone spoiled a long time ago. And until we fix our barrel, our apples are never going to become healthy again. And so my life and my career has been committed to system level change. There is a lot of emphasis since COVID, especially to change our systems. But changing our systems is sometimes a bit abstract because system level change at the root core is changing the minds and perceptions of massive amount of people and placing pressure in particular points to make that happen. And there's actually a science behind it. We no longer have to just so much of our movement since COVID has been throwing wet paper towels at the wall and hoping that they stick. But there's actually a science behind how we implement things, how we plan things, how we engage in system level change to maximize impact. And that's precisely what my background is in. And so I moved from just youth behavior into the area of health. There's this thing that happens. I don't know if you've experienced it in your life as well, where we live a certain way and with certain values. So for me, I've lived a natural lifestyle. I was vaccine injured as a baby. And then I was re-vaccine injured in my 20s when I was convinced that they took mercury out of the flu shot and I got it again. And so I've had a lot of experiences through my life where the modern medical system was not meeting my needs and actually doing me harm. So when COVID came along, uh, this very personal health story, this very personal experience of my life. And as you said, I wrote a book on gut health because I truly believe in getting to the root causes of why chronic disease exists. There's a lot of research out there. This isn't brand new. There's a lot about how our way of living predicts how we feel and how our health status is. I took this very personal journey of how I lived my life and started to say, well, maybe these two things need to merge together. Maybe my commitment to system level change needs to move into this very personal journey of mine of being healthy. Maybe instead of just focusing in research that sits in some ivory tower somewhere, I step outside of that and say, how do we actually change our systems so that other people can live to their fullest potential? Because I truly believe that if we change our systems in ways that really matter, right? Empowering our farmers again, getting critical thinkers in schools, empowering mothers to know that their intuition matters and they could put healthy food on their table for their children. They don't need the government to tell them how to raise their children, how to cook their meals, what medicines to give them, right? We can live freely, and in doing so, create healthier, happier societies. And so that has been my trajectory. I became very interested. I'm clearly an American, as you could tell by my accent. So I'll talk about the elephant in the room of why is the American the chief strategic officer of MEHA, and it's simply because I became we are an interconnected world. We are. Part of MEHA is about, and we'll talk about this in a while, I'm sure, but it's about restoring national sovereignty and individual cultures. But that doesn't disconnect us from each other. We're still all human. And so I became very interested in this interconnectedness in the world. That led me to a wonderful sisterhood relationship with Dr. Maria Ubermog, who about a year ago had said, hey, we should be making Europe healthy again. And the two of us started to do this, and a creative, it planted the seed and a creative genius flowed out of it. And so I'm really excited to be part of this team, our executive board with Maria and Rob Roos and Dr. Asim Malhotra. And so we're from all different perspectives and able to find that sweet spot that allows us to really grow a social movement that has impact and long-lasting change.
Maybe, and I would love to unpack parts of your background, but I will not, because that will sidetrack me. We can do that another time.
Sure.
Um, but tell us, as an American, how you've seen this call with Bobby Kennedy calling for America to be healthy. Before we get on to the European side, um, because I think that we both have huge issues, but I think with America, certainly with the food that is available, and I'm just back from Texas a week ago, and as always, it's you go to the supermarket, it's quite difficult to find food that a human should be consuming. That's
Food
not
that's
easy.
actually a food product.
I know, and you don't even know it. I know when you arrive in the supermarket, you arrive at the fruit and veg area, and again, we're learning those may not actually be as healthy as we are told. Who knows how long they've been kept in cold storage areas, etc. But I guess, how have you seen the MAHA movement start from nowhere and really grow such a wide group of individuals from different political backgrounds, but all realizing that actually there's a problem that needs solved? So, how have you seen that kind of development over this year?
So, well, first, I would like to say that one of the beautiful pieces, I think, of the MAHA movement, and I don't mean to correct you. I don't mean that in this way. I mean this more in an accolades to you and folks like you, is that it didn't actually come out of nowhere. It came out of very dedicated individuals who've been fighting for a very long time. However, they were silenced and didn't have platforms to speak until people like you and the many other alternative media folks who really had enough bravery to speak out, put a platform forward, and get the voice out there. And when that happened, we saw the MAHA movement be born, because until then, it was really just moms who experienced vaccine injured children or noticed that their child doesn't need medications for ADHD. They just need to not eat the hyper sugary, ultra processed foods in the morning, right? But they were individual experiences disconnected. And so I will forever be grateful to people like you who brings this message out, because without a voice, we can't be heard. And so thank you for that. How do I think MAHA is going? I think MAHA has very strongly illustrated how tightly intertwined our political systems are with public-private partnerships and the corporations that rule over our political systems. I think that in terms of getting the conversation out there about whether you're talking about the corruption of our food or vaccines or the many other topics that used to be fringe, that used to be, you can't even talk about it, right? It would be like, don't talk about, don't sit at the dinner table and talk about politics, religion, or vaccines, right? But now you can talk about them. So I think in that way, we've shifted the cultural norm. We've allowed and opened the conversation that you're not just a crazy person if you don't want to get vaccinated. You're not just a crazy woo-woo person if you pay attention to what's in your food, but we made it more normal to say, what are the ingredients here? Same time, we've surfaced just how bought our political system is. And sometimes that feels really, really disheartening because we want to believe that our elected officials have the power to make change. But when our elected officials' election is based on their allegiance to the corporations that do us harm, then we no longer really have elected officials that represent us. And so it has surfaced a lot. It has brought, the issues are not new. We now just see them in a different light, and it allows us to fight them differently. At the end of the day, my personal belief is that shocking, this is going to be a groundbreaking statement, but our government is not coming to save us. They're not coming. We put all this stock in MAHA. MAHA, come save us. And the truth of the matter is MAHA is not going to come save us. The people who are going to come save us are every single individual in our community, the 8 billion people of the world rising up and saying, you know what? You actually don't have power over me. I rescind my consent. No, I will not do that. And I'm going to bake my own bread, and I'm going to grow my own food, and I'm going to share it with my neighbors and drink my own raw milk. And I no longer align with these policies that do harm. So the power, it sounds cliche, but the power really exists not in Washington, D.C., not in Brussels, Belgium, but at your dinner table with what you feed your children. And that's the basics, right? There's a lot of other layers, but if we start at the basics with healthy, happy families, connected in real life, like bringing humanity back to the equation, then the rest kind of crumbles to the ground, because we're never going to the institutions that profit from our sickness are never going to be the ones to make us healthy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And why would they do that when they can make drugs to fix the problems that are caused by the first drug? So
Right.
just as we've
They
seen.
could cause the disease and then cure it for us.
Exactly, exactly. It's funny that they seem to have a fast tracking mRNA fixes for cancer suddenly, and you wonder why. But that is a deeper conversation.
It's amazing how that could happen, right? They can't just kill COVID and treat it, but they could create a fast track vaccine and then fast track the cancer treatment, because all of that is much easier than killing a virus in the first place.
No, and when
If
you
you
don't have
have
to disclose all the side effects, but you know them and have a drug prepped for it. But
it.
we'll not jump too far down the rabbit hole, or we could both go very deep, I think. I really think that. But how is tell us a little bit about bringing the people together on the European side, because you've got a great team of political figures. You've got
Mhm.
a great team of those more in the PR side. You've got
Yeah.
doctors. You've got people who understand the food industry. You've got people who understand how the crazy patchwork of Europe come together, and how they connect. So it's this is not a one size fits all. This not one person can bring. It's a collaboration of many individuals with such experience and deep understanding. But how did nothing in Europe is easy. Bringing
Mhm.
people together in Europe is never. I think I think it's even more difficult than the US. Much more difficult because of strongly held um, national ideas, which are now being
Mhm.
removed very quickly. But tell us a little bit about that journey of bringing people together to actually launch it. Just over a month ago in
Yeah.
Brussels.
So this is you're hitting on the most exciting, I think, part of MEHA, which is the complexity of it. Uh, so there's many ways in which we're very uh, aligned and partnered with MAHA. Many of the MAHA Action folks and MAHA Institute folks are part of our steering committee and international advisory board so that we can share and learn with each other, along with folks from Australia and all over the world. So we have global international partnerships. So we are not reinventing the wheel. We are not, we're learning from each other, right? When one rises, we all rise. At the same time, we're very distinct from MAHA. And one of the ways we're very distinct is we are not a political organization. We have no political agenda. We are not affiliated with any political party at all. And that being said, that allows us to work with as many political parties that will participate with us. But political party work, meaning policy activation, policy pushing, policy education, all of that is a tool in our toolbox. We are also going the grassroots level of activating communities and getting the word out and changing hearts, bodies, and minds about what it takes to be healthy. And so we have this new paradigm of health governance where the globalists want what's known as a top-down model, where they make the rules, they make their decisions. Where are their decisions coming from? They're typically coming from their partnerships with what I call psychopathic corporations, right? Corporations who have power, money at their front line of interest, with human health being somewhere else in the list. Uh, and so they're making these decisions, and they're making these decisions based on conflicts of interest. And then they want that to unanimously go down the ranks on a global scale. And then people just comply. And then they use all of this strategy to help people comply: convenience, tyranny, right? They do all this stuff. They do this, oh, it's not us, it's your government doing it. This is legally binding, whole rabbit hole we could dive down. And they use all these different, fear-based strategies, all that stuff. Then you have the flip side. You have a bottom up, right? You have grassroots efforts, which, like you said, you were just at the Together conference. I mean, the UK has been the leader. Like, us Americans look onto you all, especially during COVID, with your protests and your marches of like, how do you get so many people to show up? Because in America, we struggled with that, right? So there's no greater grassroots effort. I was the co uh, 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 Dr. Maria Uber-Mogg, myself, Dan Aston Gregory, and a few other folks
Oh, I
helped.
met Dan for the first time
I love
yesterday. I'd
him.
never met him before.
Oh, you should have him on your show. He's
I
such a
will.
wonderful, wonderful person. Um, we hosted the Geneva Project last year or I guess 2 years ago now, maybe, where we did a major rally outside of the UN building when they were voting on the pandemic treaty to kill the pandemic treaty. And where was I going with this? Oh, the amazement at the grassroots energy that Europeans have that is culturally embedded. We don't see that elsewhere in the world. And I've done a few lessons learned, focus group type things to distill how can we learn this? How can we share this? And it is so deeply culturally embedded from your long history, independent, each country has slightly different versions of the story, but it rises, right? There's like this burning fire of grassroots energy. And so MEHA represents the coming together of this energy, this pulling together, because it exists. We don't need to stoke the flame. All we need to do is like bring it together so it, like the little sparks fly up together instead of in different silos. And so Miha is really just like a space keeper of all of this energy that's already happening, and then helping filter it to that top down energy to say, hey, parliamentarians, we need your help. We need you to prioritize these efforts. We need you to pass facilitating and enabling policies that allow us to do our work. But we are not dependent upon you, or we are not just listening to the agenda you're pushing. Our fire is pushing the agenda, and we're reminding you that we elected you to do this, to represent us. And now we're putting the pressure on you in various capacities. It's not a fight. Miha is not really about the fight. It's about the impact and the win and the change we're going to see. And so let's pull the grassroots together. Let's pull the top down together. And let's actually find the mechanisms to make the change we want to see.
How do you focus this is not just about the food side, and
Mhm.
I remember flying over the US and asking for tomato juice, and then they instead of a pouring it out of something which was tomato juice, they gave me a tin. And I looked, and it was a Bloody Mary mixed tin, and I looked and it said only with cane sugar on the front. Thinking, why do you have sugar in? And then I looked at the ingredients and thought, oh my, I thought but you've got that
Wasn't
side on
even
the
tomato in it.
I know. Probably the 4th ingredient or something. But you've got that side on food. You've then got the side on the vaccine rollout. I mean, many vaccines are mandatory in Europe, where you don't actually have the freedom, and then the state will use the power of child services to
Mhm.
actually come in and enforce that. So you've got different situations, different levels of, I guess, control and depravity in different European countries. How
Mhm.
do you sit down? You think this is the mountain that we need to move.
Mhm.
Food, this huge industry in terms of lobbying in the US, less lobbying maybe in Europe, but big pharma, all these companies, they exist to make money for their shareholders. They don't exist for our benefit. How do you begin to, I guess, go up against those huge entities that um, don't want to budge, but
Yeah.
yet you've got a population that actually wants the best for themselves, really?
So there's multiple answers to this. This is a beautiful question. So the first is I want to differentiate, and we kind of started talking about this, and then I think I lost my train of thought. But the complexity of Miha that makes it so much fun is that every country within Europe is distinct. And one of our guiding principles and founding principles is that the cultural identity and cultural heritage is part of health. We can't separate those two things out. And so, what the globalists want to do, this was actually the rabbit hole I was going down before, and I found a new one, is that they want to make us all the same. They want to make, I mean, even America and Europe, they want to, oh, look, we're all the same. But the truth is, we're not. But why they want to do that is because when we forget where we came from, when we forget to pass on that intergenerational knowledge that makes us us, we become reliant on their systems. When we forget how to grow our own food, when we are conditioned to believe that we can't drink the milk from the cow in the that our neighbor has, right? When we forget that we are capable, we become compliant. We need them to save us. So this is the core messaging of their strategy. That's why it is easier to control when we are all the same. So one of Miha's guiding principles is to reinvigorate the individuality of each culture, because who we are and who what our culture is defines our identity, and our identity defines our health. It is a foundational premise that we don't often talk about, but it's so important. Now, where the complexity lies in is when we do that, we're simultaneously dealing with a a heterogeneous population, right? The different European nations are not the same. Not only are their needs not the same, like not all nations have the same vaccine schedule, not all nations have the same problem with food or even the same types of chronic disease as outcome variables. Um, so you're dealing with that, but then you're dealing very basic things like language barriers and cultural barriers and communication barriers, right? You're dealing with all of the personality differences. Like we'll put the skunk on the table, and across different culture, people have different personalities that don't always click, right? And so, how do you pull it together while simultaneously keeping it distinct? And that is the beauty and the art of what we're doing. It is the painting we're painting on the wall. It's saying we are all different. And unlike what the globalists and our governments have taught us, I believe that our disunity is our strength. And just because someone is different from me doesn't mean I hate them, doesn't mean I fear them. It means I have an opportunity to learn from them in a different way. And when we get past our differences and we honor those differences, we begin to see the thread that pulls through us. And I don't want that to sound cliche because I actually mean it very logistically. Like if there is a really, really good lawyer out there in Switzerland who is fighting all this stuff, where there are some amazing teams of attorneys in Hungary right now fighting vaccine related stuff, or look at what the UK is doing when it comes to digital ID. We don't need to reinvent the wheel in Italy or France or the Netherlands. We can borrow and learn from each other and share. So even though we recognize that our countries are distinct and our histories are distinct and the way we fight and the people we're fighting are distinct, the truth is still the truth. Vaccines can harm. Food should be real, right? There's basics and foundations. We should all be able to live in vitality and the way we want to live. I may choose to live a way that's different from you, but we both have the right to live that way. We all have the right to privacy, including digital privacy. And so we become a shared learning community. And at its core, this is what MEHA is. I like to liken MEHA to the human body. We are not the muscles of the body. Those are all the activists out there who are out there fighting, pounding the street, making the noise, making the difference, the people doing the hard work that takes movement. We're also not the brains, right? We're no master controller. The brains, there's so many beautiful brains out there who are fighting, the attorneys, the doctors, the scientists, many of our politicians even, right? They're out there doing the work, telling us the truth. We're the backbone. So we are the connector. We are saying, hey, there's communication streams that could happen. There are ways we could create an infrastructure around media, around health, around law, around policy. We create an infrastructure because there are so many brilliant, brilliant people across Europe whose voice can make the difference. I've seen them. They came to Brussels. They spoke in the parliament. Our email box, I cannot even keep up with these days because more and more people are reaching out with these incredible expertise. And they're not names that you and I would ever know because they simply need to be connected into this platform we're building, which we call MEHA.
No, it is,
So, yeah.
and it is. I mean, there's nothing like it. I guess something is launched, and many people think that's exactly what we needed. We just didn't know how. And you pulled it together, and I think it was one of the. Let me. What you want? One of the headlines was "Make Europe Healthy Again" launches dominated by anti-vaxxers and far-right politicians. And my first thought was, oh, I like it even more. I mean, it sounds great. I'm just annoyed I missed out on being there.
Don't you like this? Don't you like when the slander is some of the best, the best
Absolutely.
headlines? Yeah.
What about that? Getting the messaging out. Obviously, we've seen the power of alternative media and getting information out, and that doesn't. You see the anger of the national states because they no longer have the monopoly on information. But what was that like? Just being there and getting the message out whenever you have that opposition, just like if the opposition in the US against MAHA, which supposedly is a bad thing, that you want to be healthy. How dare you want to be healthy? The same thing in Europe. How do you kind of work and get the message out whenever you've got that huge amount of, I guess, opposition from, well, nearly every country in Europe?
It's a beautiful question, and I think so. So specifically, for those who are wondering exactly what we're talking about, we launched in the EU Parliament MEHA, Make Europe Healthy Again, about a month ago, maybe a little less. And we brought together, I mean, the room was filled. We had no more seats available with experts from all over Europe, all over the world, in fact, and giving testimonials to make Europe healthy again. And of course, we got backlash. Of course, we got slander. Of course, we got all of the things one would expect. But I think it's part of it's part of the game we're playing. They use propaganda, and attacks and personal attacks are part of their propaganda ploy. And so long as we're afraid to speak, so long as we're afraid to voice our opinions or be associated with one of those far right groups, or gosh, imagine being one of those anti-vaxxers. I mean, these are all words that they connotated with negative things, but we don't even think they're negative. And so being fearful is allowing them to win. That's their main tactic is fear. And you see it across the board time and time and time and time again. If you boil down you go through history to most of their atrocities, and you're going to see that they use fear to justify all of their behavior every time. It's what they did with COVID, fear. And so see it with digital IDs. What are we fearing with digital IDs? I mean, in America, we've got the immigration. I know you have that in Europe as well. We've got food stamps, the whole government shutdown that we had. It was all based in fear, 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 fear. Just like when 9/11 happened, they passed the Patriot Act in America to take away our privacy, justifying it by fear. This goes back time and time again, and it became commonplace during COVID. And so the more we act on fear, the more they could silence us on fear, the more they win. And I say this to say you don't have to be on this amazing Hearts of Oak platform. You don't have to be in EU Parliament to have a voice. You can resist their fear by simply sitting, getting your hair cut, and talking about how you don't really think vaccines are going to work out for you anymore. Or asking somebody, hey, is this meat vaccinated when you go to the butcher? When you go, by taking your dollar and shopping at the local farmer's market, you are showing that you're not afraid. So you don't have to have a loud voice and a platform and step into the boxing ring where you could get pounded and slandered and all of the media against you. Every single one of us could face the globalist fear and have a voice by simply speaking to our family, friends, and asking simple questions like, hey, when I go to a restaurant in America, because, you can't just get healthy food at a restaurant most of the time, I'll say, what brand is that turkey? Do you make it here? And no, is it changing the whole system? But imagine if every single customer who came in demanded antibiotic vaccine-free meats. Very quickly, we don't need a policy passed down from Washington, D.C. If every single customer started asking for these things, we would see a change fast. And so how do I deal with, the slander that came in? We didn't pay it any attention. If we paid attention walking into the EU Parliament for our launch with the fear that we would get opposition, then we would never do anything. When we marched outside Geneva, when we marched in Geneva, our hotel was actually the same hotel that the globalists were staying at and hosting their side events. And so that fear was in my face. I'm not going to lie to you. When I walked in the first day and I was like, oh, I'm leading a major anti-WHO march right now, and we're staying in the same hotel as the Secretariat. But the matter of the fact is that we stand for truth and transparency and humanity. And so in my belief, God is on my side. And when God is on my side, I'm not going to stand here and fear the devil.
You're 100%. Can I just again another distinction? And although we are separate countries in Europe, the EU have done a fantastic job of actually cementing countries together. So, for instance, whenever we had the COVID passport, which in effect it was, that was an EU wide system, central data, all collected centrally. Then it went to America and found out you had a little bit of white paper with something scribbled on it. What? So it's like so difficult. I'm wondering how that, in terms of getting the message out, pushing back, you've got the separate entities, the countries, but there's still a closer connection sometimes with those
Mhm.
separate countries than there is with the US, which is really often still at the state level. I mean, you knew which state to go to get freedom, to be able to breathe air outside. Where Europe, it was everyone coming together and telling. So I guess with how you get the message out, how do you kind of see the different approaches whenever you've got the EU as a hammer, just whack,
Yeah.
ready to come down on
Right.
anyone who dissents.
Well, and so one point of clarification, though it's not so much clarification as we've considered this, is that MEHA is not just EU. We are the full European continent. And we will be growing over time. And one of the major directions we'll be growing is that we will have a MEHA France, a MEHA Italy, a MEHA Greece, a MEHA UK. And those individual entities will all be autonomous entities that think about this. Goes back to your previous question that I'm not even sure if I distinctly answered. But each, so MIHA France will go into what are the major needs in France. Potentially, the major needs in France are, is it the food? Is it the vaccine schedule? Is it geoengineering? Is it digital ID? Right? What are the major issues right now in France that France needs to deal with? And then what other countries are dealing with that? It may be that the EU countries, I don't know, this is, looking into a crystal ball. It may be that the EU countries naturally have allegiance together because they're fighting a similar fight, whereas the non EU countries don't. Or it may be that France and Hungary have some similarity, and we just connect those subject matter experts together. So again, we are not driving the ship. We're simply creating the station for the ship to move into. And it is all of the brilliance of the experts on the ground, both the professionals, the activists, and everyone in between that make those connections. And you're absolutely right that things like language barriers, cultural barriers, historical barriers, right? Just the nations working together in different ways, it is much more complicated than what we see in America.
No, it is.
At the same time, and I do want to plug this. One of the reasons why, even though it's more complicated than what we see in America, it's more optimistic. And the reason is that you all have what we don't have. So America, and I could say this because I'm American, I like to liken us to sort of like a cranky little toddler, right? Like we were just born in the 1700s, we're hit our toddler age, and we're kind of like, I want more, right? Give me what I want. Power, money. But that's who we are. And we don't really have a strong cultural, other than our indigenous populations, we don't have a strong cultural heritage to support us and act as a protective factor to take us away from the political influence that we're seeing right now. We don't have ancient wisdom in the way that Europeans have. You have generations upon generations upon generations. And listen, you led us out of the dark ages, for goodness sake. So you have so much ancient knowledge and wisdom that answers all of the problems we have today and culture acts as a protective factor against the political strife that we're experiencing. And so that is also, mind you, why the globalists are washing it away, why the EU is making all the countries the same. Because when you listen, it's the same thing as not teaching cursive in schools in America anymore. You can't read ancient documents. Why don't they want you to read it? Because the answers lie in the wisdom. when we remember who we are, where we came from, how to grow our food, how to be healthy, the lessons of the generations, then we don't need to be governed as hard. When we remember what humanity is, we don't fear each other. And when we don't fear each other, they can't surveil and control us. And so the more we connect, the more we remember, the more we draw upon our culture, the more they lose their grip. So much of our resistance movement has been in the nature of resistance. We're fighting them. But the second we say, listen, our fight, like I put down my weapon. Why do I put down my weapon? Because I pick up my shovel and I start growing my own food. And I'm doing it in the ways that I have been taught, because Italian farmers probably farm the way they farm, and the Holland farmers farm the way they farm, and the British farmers farm the way they farm, and everybody does it the way they've always done it for generations. The globalists completely lose their ability to control. It's just this natural thing that happens. We make their institutions obsolete by simply reinvigorating the institutions and the knowledge that you all have carried us. Where we are now is really a Renaissance 2.0. It's how do we grab the culture that has threaded through Europe for generations and bring it back again. And that is why I truly believe that MEHA will lead the way. We're going to see Europe rise again through this new Renaissance that MAHA, as strong and powerful as they are, won't be able to do, simply because America doesn't have that same cultural history that Europe has. And it's why we need Europe to rise up so we could take hold of it and, quite frankly, borrow some of it in order to separate our culture and our politics a little bit.
Let me just finish off with asking you how people can get involved. Obviously,
Mhm.
making sure they're following Dr. Andrea PhD. That is one way. I see you're modeling a MEHA top. There, of course, is the website.
There
Um,
is a website. You could
People
go to
can go
gomeha.com.
yeah. So how is it people going on the website and then signing up, playing their part? Because a lot of people have been waiting for this. Now
Mhm.
it's here, and people are saying, how can I play a part in it?" So how can the viewers and listeners get involved with making sure we are healthier in a year than we are now?
Absolutely. And we are looking for as much help and support as possible, because this is not a small group of people who can make this difference. The only way this will be successful is for all of the Europeans to come together and say, this is our time now. And so I will give you our social handles. You could go to our website, gomeha.com, and you could connect to all of our social sites. We're also looking for volunteers to support things like social media and, the basic administrative stuff. A translation is a big one. If you're a translator and could help us translate to all of the various languages, that is a skill that we will be grateful for time and time again. And of course, financial contributions. We are right now a small group, all volunteering our efforts. And in order to take this to the next level, we truly need financial support. So you could go to gomeha.com. We are a nonprofit charity status, and donate straight from our website. We could use all the financial support as possible as we launch this to the next phase. We also have some more events coming up. We will be back at the EU Parliament early next year. We will have some fundraising events in store, and so please sign up on our website for our newsletter, as well as follow us on X at GoMeha.com to stay up to date with all of our happenings. But we are looking for as much support as possible, financial, time, and energetic. So even just sharing our message, getting our message out there is potentially the most important thing you could do. And you could also just support us by thinking about us as you're thinking about what you're going to feed your family for dinner tonight. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to make everybody's life a little bit healthier. And so even if it's not plastered on a wall with sparkles and fireworks behind it, if we if my voice at one point infiltrates your mind as you put some food on your dinner table, then I will consider my life a success.
Well, let me just put up there is the that's the website. That's what you'll see whenever you jump on. Go meha.com, go and play a part, and yeah, follow what is happening. It is exciting and certainly needed. And as all with all these things, you wonder why has this not happened until now? Well, because no one has actually made it happen. So, Andrea, thank you so much for sharing what has happened over the last year. It's always good also to connect it with the US, and who cares what country someone is from, as long as they actually make the system better. So you can be from South Carolina, it doesn't matter as long as you can input in and are part of that amazing team. So thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for adopting me into your European culture.